Let's be real, there are bad bikes, and then there are bikes so questionable they make you wonder if the buyer mistook horsepower for brain power. Whether it's overhyped machines, overpriced disasters, or motorcycles that just straight up missed the point, these are the two-wheeled mistakes only truly stupid people would proudly roll out of a dealership. Here are 15 motorcycles that should have never made it out of the parking lot. Number 15. Suzuki Van 200. Let's say you show up to bike night with your buddies and you bring your Van 200. Someone squints, tilts their head, and asks if it came with a picnic basket, and you just nod because, well, it kinda looks like it should. The Van's got these fat balloon tires that look like they were borrowed from a Power Wheels ATV. Sure, they're fine if you're puttering around a campground or cruising on sand at 20 miles per hour, but take it on real asphalt and it feels like you're riding on marshmallows, soft, slow, and squirmy. And let's talk power, or the complete absence of it. The 199cc single-cylinder engine puts out around 16 horsepower. Yep, you heard that right, 16. You get more power from a decent cordless drill than you can get from this bike. The Van 200 tops out at about 70 miles per hour, downhill, plus it comes with a 5-speed gearbox, which is cute, but it shifts like it's made of jello. To be fair, the Van has some charm, but once the new bike smell wears off and reality hits, you realize you bought a toy masquerading as transportation. Number 14. HarleyDavidson Street 500. You know how every family's got that one cousin no one talks about? Yeah, that's the Street 500. Born from Harley's attempt to reach new riders, it ended up as something even diehard Harley guys couldn't defend. Let's start with the basics. This thing feels like Harley threw a cruiser and a commuter scooter in a blender and said good enough. The styling is forgettable. It's like someone googled motorcycle and traced the first image that popped up. The tank is awkward, the exhaust is plain, and the whole thing has about as much charisma as a paper towel dispenser. Plus, it looks and feels cheap. The Street 500 is powered by a 494cc liquid-cooled V-twin, which sounds cool until you twist the throttle and realize you've got all the excitement of a riding lawnmower. It's not that it's slow, it just doesn't feel like a Harley. There's no bark, no grunt, no soul. The handling is bad, the brakes also bad, and the seat feels cheap. Bottom line, if you're buying a Harley to feel something, anything, the Street 500 will leave you emotionally bankrupt. Save up for a used Sportster, or at least keep your dignity intact. If you're starting to recognize these bikes, or you just want information on which bikes to avoid, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps me keep putting out real-world tips like this to help riders like you ride smarter, spend less, and stay on the road where you belong. Number 13. Honda DN01. Alright, let's take a moment to appreciate the Honda DN01 for being one of the weirdest motorcycles ever made. This thing looks like Batman's grocery getter. It's low slung, full of angles and curves, and has the aesthetic of a futuristic scooter designed by someone who got distracted halfway through. So what exactly is the DN01? Honda said it was a crossover, a sport cruiser with a fully automatic transmission. But in reality, it handled like a big scooter, accelerated like a slow cruiser, and cost almost $15,000 brand new. That's right, 15 grand, for a bike with no identity and zero performance credibility. The 680cc V-twin engine sounds promising until you realize it's tuned for comfort, not thrill. The automatic HFT transmission, short for human-friendly transmission, was Honda's idea of making bikes easier for newbies. And it did, but it also sucked the fun right out of the ride. No gear changes, no connection, just twist and go dullness. It weighed around 600 pounds, had a tiny fuel tank and limited storage. So you're slow, heavy, and constantly looking for a gas station. And to make matters worse, the seat height is low, but the ergonomics were just poor, making the bike difficult to handle. It was simply a bad bike. Number 12. BMW C1. Have you ever seen something and just know it was built by a committee? That's the BMW C1. Someone at BMW said, let's build a motorcycle for people who are scared of motorcycles, and this was the answer. A fully roofed, seat-belted, two-wheeler that looked like it escaped from a theme park ride. The C1 was pitched as a safer alternative to traditional motorcycles, because what every rider really wants is a roll cage and the aerodynamics of a refrigerator. Instead of putting on a helmet, you strapped into this awkward plastic bubble that creaks over speed bumps and rattled like a shopping cart full of scrap metal. Performance-wise, it was laughable. The C1 came with a 125cc or 176cc engine, and both versions struggled to outrun toddlers on tricycles. Getting to 60 miles per hour was an accomplishment, and staying upright while doing it was another. It had the handling of a UPS truck and the swagger of a dental assistant's office chair. Here's the best part. BMW tried marketing it as an urban commuter, but it was too wide for tight traffic, too slow for highways, and too goofy for anyone to take it seriously. Oh, and if you dropped it, which you eventually would, repairing the body panels cost almost the same amount as the bike. This bike is arguably BMW's worst mistake. Number 11. Royal Enfield Bullet 500. Let's be honest, the Royal Enfield Bullet 500 looks cool. It's vintage, it thumps, and it turns heads at coffee shops. But give it more than a 15-minute ride and suddenly that romantic old-school charm turns into a wrenching session in a parking lot. This bike isn't just old school, it's prehistoric in the worst way. We're talking about iron barrels, points ignition, and a kickstart that either builds your character or destroys your shin. The older models had an appetite for oil, wiring issues straight out of a horror film, and a vibration that could shake the coins out of your pockets. Sure, it had that beautiful 499cc single-cylinder engine with a deep thump, but it also had the reliability of a leaky boat in a thunderstorm. You didn't ride it, you negotiated with it. Some mornings it started on the first kick. Other times you were out there sweating and cursing while your friends were already halfway to the mountains. Number 10. Boss Hos BHC3 ZZ4. If you're riding a Boss Hos BHC3, there's a 50-50 chance you just got divorced, owned too many belt buckles, or lost a bet with a monster truck. This thing isn't a motorcycle, it's a V8 powered punchline. Built in America with either a small block or big block Chevy engine, the Boss Hos is less rideable machine and more rolling testosterone overdose. We're talking 445 horsepower on some versions. That's not overkill, that's a war crime. Weighing in at over 1,100 pounds, this thing handles like a refrigerator full of concrete. Corners? What corners? You don't lean it, you persuade it. Low-speed maneuvers feel like wrestling a bear that's drunk and on fire. The heat off the engine alone could cook a Thanksgiving dinner. And God help you if you try to lane split. You'll need 2 zip codes just to park it. But here's the kicker. Despite all that power, it's not fast in the way a sports bike is fast. It's scary fast. Like accidentally did a burnout trying to leave the gas station fast. You don't ride this thing hard unless you've updated your will and said goodbye to your dog. Look, credit where it's due, the Boss Hos is loud, obnoxious, and unapologetically American. But unless your idea of fun involves balancing a jet engine on 2 wheels, it's best left as a novelty ride for county fairs and custom shows. Number 9. CF Moto 300SS. The CF Moto 300SS is a bike that has the looks of a fast bike, but nothing else to back that. The first thing that'll grab your attention is how insanely fast it looks. It features aggressive fairings, sharp LED lighting, bold paint schemes. It's the kind of bike that makes beginners say, "Yo, that thing rips," before they even hear it start. But once it does start, you realize something's off. It hums like a polite lawnmower and moves like it's scared to wake the neighbors. At 292cc, it tries to play in the baby sport bike league, but it's outgunned by nearly everything. The R3, the Ninja 400, and even old used bikes from 10 years ago will blow past it like it's riding in eco mode, and that's because it produces only 25 horsepower. And while it does come with TFT displays, ABS, and other shiny bells and whistles, it doesn't make up for its lack of power and low-quality build. If all you care about is looking fast while actually riding slow, and you don't mind explaining to every biker at the gas station what a CF Moto is, this might be your jam. But if you've got any shred of dignity, save a bit more cash and get something with a real backbone. Number 8. Kawasaki Vulcan 2000. There's big, and then there's what in the monster truck hell is this big? The Kawasaki Vulcan 2000 is a bike so unnecessarily massive that it feels like Kawasaki's engineers lost a bet and had to build a cruiser using aircraft parts. 2053cc. Let that sink in. This thing had the largest production V-twin engine of its time, bigger than most cars in the early 2000s. It made 141 pound-feet of torque, which sounds cool until you realize it handled like an aircraft carrier with a flat tire. Turning it at low speeds was hard, but maneuvering it in a parking lot was even harder. But the real issue? It had no idea what it wanted to be. It looked like it belonged at a dive bar next to a Harley, but deep down it had none of the Harley charm or aftermarket support. The styling was confused. Classic cruiser up front, budget chopper out back, and a whole lot of in between. Worse still, Kawasaki gave it a raw grunt with no real finesse. It didn't have the tech, the comfort, or the touring confidence to match its ridiculous size. It was just a giant lump of metal with handlebars and a pulse, a flex for people who think engine displacement directly correlates to testosterone levels. Number 7. Kawasaki Eliminator 125. If you've ever ridden a real cruiser and then jumped on a Kawasaki Eliminator 125, the first thing you'll say is, wait, is it on? This little wannabe cruiser came out swinging with all the aggression of a sleepy hamster. It had a 125cc air-cooled single-cylinder engine pushing out 12 horsepower. 12. That's barely enough to get you up a hill without giving it a pep talk. And yet it was styled to look like a full-sized cruiser, with that long wheelbase and low seat height trying desperately to convince you it belonged in the Harley section. It didn't. It never did. The sad part? It was marketed as a beginner-friendly cruiser. And sure, it was light and easy to ride, but so is a bicycle with training wheels. If you're going to ride something that looks like a cruiser, you want to feel the engine pull. You want that low-end grunt. The Eliminator gave you all the vibes of a cruiser with the acceleration of a shopping cart. Number 6. Suzuki B King. You ever meet a dude who's huge on top but skips leg day every week? That's the Suzuki B King. On paper, it should have been a beast. It's got the Hayabusa 1340cc inline-4 engine crammed into a naked bike frame. So yeah, it was fast, like mind-meltingly fast. But look at it. Seriously look at it. The styling was straight out of a comic book. Oversized, overstyled, and borderline absurd. Those gigantic exhausts looked like someone strapped 2 Dyson vacuums under the seat. The front end was aggressive, but the whole thing felt like it was built for a transformer who missed his movie casting call. And don't even get me started on the weight. It was heavy at over 500 pounds wet. That might be fine for a touring bike, but for something that's supposed to be a street fighter, that's just asking for trouble in the corners. It didn't handle so much as lurch around turns like a tipsy rhino. The B King came out swinging with brute force and zero finesse. Most riders couldn't even use half of what it offered without risking a wheelie into the nearest tree. And because no one could figure out why it existed, it flopped hard. Suzuki pulled the plug after just a few years. So if you ever see one on the road, salute the rider. He's either a comic book villain or just very confused. Number 5. Suzuki Hayabusa. Alright, I know what you're thinking. The Hayabusa? Seriously? Yeah, seriously. Don't get me wrong, the Hayabusa is a legend. It's stupid fast, it looks like a torpedo, and it made grown men cry in the early 2000s when it first broke the 186 mph barrier. But here's the thing, it's too much bike for almost everyone, and that's the problem. The Hayabusa is the bike people buy to brag, not to ride. It's the ultimate flex for straight line speed, but unless you live on an abandoned runway or ride exclusively in a desert with no traffic and zero curves, it's like bringing a bazooka to a bar fight. It's overkill in the worst way. It weighs nearly 600 pounds, chews through tires like popcorn, and drinks gas like it's prepping for a cross-country run every time you twist the throttle. And don't even talk about insurance. It's the kind of bike that makes your premium go up just by Googling it. And while Suzuki has refined it over the years, it still feels like a land missile disguised as a motorcycle. No rider who's being honest with themselves needs a Hayabusa. They want it for the ego trip. So yeah, it's not the worst bike on the list, but it is one that stupid people buy thinking they're getting the pinnacle of motorcycling, when really, they're just buying a straight line rocket with the personality of a cinder block. Number 4. Ducati 749. The Ducati 749 is like ordering a pizza and getting a salad with pepperoni on top. Sure, it technically has what you ask for, but it's just not satisfying. Sandwiched between the legendary 748 and the absolute banger that was the 999, the 749 always felt like Ducati's awkward teenage phase. It had the Testastretta L-twin engine, putting out around 108 horsepower. Not terrible, but nothing special. Especially not when the price tag screamed premium Italian performance, and the ride screamed meh. Let's not forget the styling. It came with that controversial Pierre Terblanche design, the one that split the Ducati community harder than pineapple on pizza. The stacked headlights, sharp edges, and boxy tail did not age well. It wasn't ugly per se, but it definitely was not turning heads the way a Ducati should. The worst part? It handled fine, but it wasn't fun. It had all the quirks of a Ducati, expensive maintenance, questionable reliability, clunky shifting, but none of the fiery soul that made you forgive all that. It felt like it was built for someone who wanted a Ducati just for the badge, but didn't want to commit to the real deal. If you bought a 749, you didn't get the performance of a 999 or the charm of the 748. You got stuck in the middle, and nobody remembers the middle child. Number 3. Honda Fury. So picture this, you're in a boardroom at Honda. You're wearing a suit, sipping green tea, and someone slams their hands on the table and says, "Let's build a chopper." That's how the Honda Fury happened. Now, I'll give Honda some credit. They tried. They really, really tried. The Fury had those classic stretched forks, raked front end, low-slung seat, and custom-style wheels. On paper, it looked like something you'd see at a bike show next to a guy named Snake who welds metal skulls onto his exhaust pipes. But then you find out it's a Honda, and suddenly it's not cool anymore. Underneath the attitude, it's just a fuel-injected 1300cc V-twin that's smoother than a jazz playlist at a dentist's office. It's quiet. Too quiet. Like it didn't want to offend anyone. It handled like a bar stool, had no soul, and didn't even give you the raw, vibrating, oil-leaking chaos that real choppers thrive on. It was a chopper for accountants, the kind of bike you buy when you want to look dangerous but still make it home in time for Wheel of Fortune. The Fury wasn't awful in terms of engineering. It was actually too good, which was the problem. You don't buy a chopper for reliability, you buy it to be a menace. The Fury made you look like a poser even if you had tattoos and a chain wallet. If you wanted the chopper look with none of the attitude, you got the Fury, and that's exactly why it didn't sell. Number 2. Victory Vision. Guys, I present to you the motorcycle that looks like it time traveled out of a failed 1980s sci-fi movie, the Victory Vision. This thing doesn't look like a bike. It looks like a failed prototype for a luxury vacuum cleaner that transforms into a jet ski. Victory wanted to build something bold, something that could compete with the Goldwing and Harley's touring rigs, and bold it was. The Vision had this massive plastic fairing that wrapped around the entire front end like a futuristic shield designed to protect your dignity while simultaneously crushing it. And the rear? It had those swooping saddlebags that looked like the back end of a robotic stingray. It was big, it was heavy, and it had presence, just not the kind you want, like that weird guy at a party who brings his own karaoke mic. Performance-wise, it wasn't bad. It had a 106 Ci V-twin that put out decent torque. It was smooth, comfortable, and loaded with tech for its time, but nobody could get past the looks. It was a bike that made grown men squint and say, "Is that supposed to be like that?" And you couldn't park it without people asking questions. No compliments, questions. Like, "Is that custom? Or did you build that in your garage with spare car parts?" Victory tried to make a statement. Instead, they made a punchline. And when the brand finally folded in 2017, nobody was shocked, especially not Vision owners. They'd been trying to sell theirs for years. Here it is, number 1, the crown jewel of confused motorcycle identity, the Harley-Davidson Livewire. When Harley announced its all-electric bike, the world raised an eyebrow. When they released it for $30,000, everyone laughed. This bike was supposed to be Harley's bold leap into the future, but instead of winning over new riders, they managed to alienate everyone at once. Older riders didn't want a Harley that didn't rumble, didn't shake, and didn't sound like an actual war was starting. Meanwhile, young, tech-savvy riders looked at the price tag, looked at their Teslas, and said, "Nah, I'm good." To be fair, the Livewire is not a bad motorcycle. It's actually fun. Instant torque, buttery smooth ride, and sleek design. But the problem was simple. It had no audience. It was like Harley threw a party and invited a bunch of people who hate dancing. And let's talk range, about 100 miles in real-world riding. So unless you're commuting or joyriding close to home, you're constantly planning your next charging session. Then came the biggest gut punch. Harley spun it off into its own brand, quietly pushing it out the back door like a disappointment. They basically said, "This isn't really ours anymore, okay?" The Livewire wasn't just a bad boy, it was a mismatched identity crisis with a $30K price tag and nowhere to fit it. The electric world didn't want it, and the Harley world flat out rejected it. So congratulations, Livewire, you're not just number 1, you're the benchmark for bikes nobody needed, but somebody still bought. If you ever think of buying a bike, I guess you have a clear idea of what to avoid. Which other bikes should we have included on this list? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. See you in the next one.